Hi, welcome to Petradot. And in today's lesson, we are going to be discussing function. Function is a block of code that performs a specific task. And in Java, what is commonly referred to as function in other programming languages is called method in Java. Now, Java is an object-oriented programming language, and every executable code in Java appears in a class, right? And for every function that appears in a class in Java is called a method. So automatically, because Java is an object-oriented programming language and every code appears in a class, means that all the method actually, all the functions actually appear in a class, and that is why it is called method. So in Java, anything you call function in other programming language is called a method in Java. Now, the structure of a method or function in Java has the following: the access modifier. Now, this access modifier defines or controls the visibility of that method, right? Either it is public, private, protected, right? Don't worry, we are going to be explaining this in the future very well. But just know that this allows or helps you to define how this method is going to be visible to other classes in other packages, right? Then it also has the access non-access modifiers, which include the static, the final, and the abstract. So it affects the behavior of the method and how it is assessed. Then it has the return type. Now, what is the return type? The return type is talking about the type of value, that is the type of data the method will return, right? So uh when we talk of return type, is like the value that is going to return that can be passed to a variable or printed to the screen, right? So if you call that method, it's going to return a value which can be assigned to a variable. Now, the return type now is now saying what type of value is this method going to return. But if it is not returning any value at all, then that means the return type is going to be void. Now, the next thing that follows also is the method name. That is the name or identifier for the method. Then while we have the optional parameters. Alright, let us define the structure of this method, which is, we'll have something like, let's say that our access modifier, just like we said, it has the access modifiers. Our access modifier is public, something like public. Then we have the non-access modifier static, which static allows you to call a method without necessarily creating the object of that method. You don't need to initialize the instance of that method for you to call it. All you just need to do is call it directly from the class name. So let's assume that our non-access modifier is static. Then we have a return type, right? Probably is going to return an integer as a value. Then we'll have the method name, say some some numbers. Then we have the parameters, which could be optional, or let's say that this is print name. So the parameters could be optional, meaning it is not taking in any parameter at all. So the parameter is meant to come here. Either you are going to take strange name as a parameter, right? Or is going to be taking an integer as the parameter, right? Why here is the block of code it is going to be running. This is going to contain the block of code it will run. So just like we said, a function or method is a block of code that performs a specific task. Don't worry, I'm using a function or method so that you understand in case you are coming from another programming language. So just know that Java refers to a function as method, right? But they are all the same. So but in Java it is called a method because every function that appears within a class in Java is called a method. And Java, being an object oriented programming language, means that every every action or code must appear within a class, right? So this is the structure of a method, which we have decided now. We have the public, which is the access modifier, the non-access modifier, the return type, the method name, and the optional parameters, then the block of code. So let's say, for example, let's test run creating a method that will print name, right? So we came under our method. We are going outside the method to create it, right? So public static, we are going to make our access modifier void because we just want to print a name. Void means it's not going to return any assignable value that can be assigned to a variable, right? Public static void print name, then it's not taking any parameter. So what are we going to do? System.out.println, then print Petra dot. All right, so you can just then this brings us to calling or invoking a method, right? So to call a static method, for example, let's say we created a separate class. Let's say we have a separate class here, class print, class print. We'll have something like this. I'm bringing this method into this class. Let's define how to call a static method. You see now, this is a class. For me to call this class, actually I'm supposed to create an instance of it, but because it's a static method, I can just do print dot print name and it's done, right? But normally, if it's not a static method, you need to have something like print equals to new print. Then I can now use this print to be able to call this method, right? But because it's a static method, I don't need to do this. All I need to do is just call the method directly from the class name and it will work. And this is it. So, and if you run this program now, it will, you will see Petra dot printed on our console. So let's test run and see. Exactly, and we see it now. We have it here. So, but let's delete that class and bring back our method to where it was. So we have something like this. So that is not here. So we'll bring it here outside our main method. So all we can do is just what? To call print name. So you can see that we'll just have an example, simple example of a method that prints a name to the console, right? Now we have two types of methods, which includes the user-defined methods and the standard library methods, right? We have already done an example of a user-defined method. That is the one you created by yourself while writing your code. So you define this method by yourself. When we talk about the standard library methods, is the one that is already existing by default in Java. For example, we have the system.out.println here. This method is already existing in Java by default. Is a built-in method provided by the Java API, right? So we also have, for example, let's say we have strange name equals to Petra dot, right? Strange already provides us with a default way to get the length of the characters in that string. So this is an example of a standard library method that is already existing in Java API, right? So we're not the one that defined it. This already came with the Java package itself, right? So why this method was defined by ourselves. These are the two types of method we have. That is the user-defined method and the standard library methods, right? So now we just created a method that is not printing out any, is not returning any value at all, right? So let's create another method that is going to return a value. So public static int. Let's say we want to sum two numbers. Sum numbers, right? So we have something like int a, comma, and int b. All we want you to do is collect these two values from the user. Whenever you are passing, when you are calling the method, you should pass these two values for us. So what we should have now, return a plus b, which is going to give us an integer. If we return a string, you will see it throwing an error, because we say that the return type is an integer, but we're returning a string, so it must be an integer, that is a plus b. So if you call this number, for example, now if you should call it, we have to define an integer in sum equal to sum of numbers, and when you call it, you need to pass the two numbers, which is 10, for example, and 5 as the two arguments. But note this, any value you want to be a must be the first, just the same way you aligned it here. So a came first before b. So if this was supposed to be your b, your a, then a must be here. You can't bring b here, else it might give you an error based on what you want to achieve, right? So now we have passed the two arguments, which is 10 and 5 as a and b, to the method we just created here, which is sum of numbers. So whenever we run this program right now, this method will get the sum of the numbers and return the value and assign it to this variable called sum. So we can now print this variable now, system.out.println, let's say Ctrl X, the sum is sum. So let's run this code again and see. You can see that we have 15. So this is an example of a method that has a return type, a return value, right? So I think we have actually covered everything. So let's recap again from the beginning in what we discussed. We said that a method is a block of code that performs a specific task. And in Java, what is normally called function in other programming language is called method in Java. So you can still say that a method is also called function, right? Then the structure of a method has the following: the access modifiers, the non-access modifiers, which includes the static, final, abstract. Then the return type, well, that is the type of value the method returns, or it can be void if it returns nothing, just as we did here. Then the method name, followed by method name. So here our method name is print name, while here the method name is sum numbers. You can note also that the names are what? Meaningful. So any method that you are going to be creating should have the name of the action or the function is going to be performing, right? So this method was meant to print a name, hence it was called print name, and this one was meant to sum numbers, hence it was named sum numbers, right? Then we have the optional parameters. A method can either take parameters or not, right? It is optional, right? So then finally, what is the importance or the significance of method? One is that it helps in your code modularity. That is, it helps you to break down complexity of your program. In every project, you have tons, a lot of actions to perform, a lot of features. But if you come to your main method and start packing everything here, it will not be looking nice. Your code will not be organized, and for you to maintain it will be difficult, right? So hence, you can just create different methods to perform the action. So I've created a separate method and then just come here and call the name. So it helps you in your code modularity, right? So the second one is that it helps in reusability of your code. So I can call this print name many times now. I can't just call it only here. So anyhow, any number of times I want to use this method, I can use it. So it helps in reusability, right? Then it also helps in your code organization. It improves the structure and readability of your code, and also maintenance. So if I have any issue with any particular part of the code, all I need to do is just to go to this function here and fix it here. So fixing it will be very simple, and debugging this code will be very simple. That is the importance of using a function or a method in Java. So I hope everything is clear. So if you have any question, do well to use the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.